lack of polish shows.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Eric.
I'm Ty.
And we are ShantottoCast.
How's it?
Well, unfortunately, as always, it is our last episode.
Yep. It is our last episode, alright.
I got nothing.
Oh.
Why is it I
haven't told you?
No.
I seriously haven't told you. I'm just quitting everything. I'm gonna dedicate my life onto getting onto the Ellen DeGeneres show. I'm selling all of my valuable possessions. I need to meet Ellen DeGeneres. I have to.
You say Ellen the Generous?
I have. Lil Nas X was interviewed by Ellen DeGeneres and Oprah. How am I gonna? He's already ahead of me. I gotta catch up.
All right, so Ty's basically gonna end up a hermit, living his life hopping L trains here in Chicago.
I didn't say "damn Daniel" enough to the point where I get invited onto the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Anyway, speaking of getting started on things after having not started something,
nice segue.
we're gonna be talking about starter decks today.
Yeah.
What are starter decks, you may be asking? Just kidding, nobody actually asks that.
They're a little self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's in the name. But starter decks are pre-built, pre-constructed decks across any given trading card game that are typically meant for newer players. More recently, though, they've also introduced starter decks exclusive cards in TCGs for extra incentive to pick up these boxed decks.
Yeah. They've always been kind of around, but
yeah,
they're just a bit more prominent now. And
right.
on top of that, starter deck exclusive cards are slowly getting better.
Very true.
Like, we've even seen that. We'll kind of get a bit more into it, but we're seeing that in Yu-Gi-Oh! We're seeing that in Final Fantasy, definitely.
Yep, for sure.
As we'll get into in the episode.
Yu-Gi-Oh! It's more so reprints.
Yeah.
Of all things, but I mean, they're needed. They're necessary.
Yeah, but there have been times where the starter deck exclusive cards are just out of this world. Like, a good example that I always bring up is Monarchs.
Right, right.
Which, also to date this episode, because I always have to do that, we just got the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list, which unbans a Monarch card, which about fucking time. It's only been like 3 years.
Right?
Yeah.
But, then the next question you might be asking, probably not,
yeah.
is what makes the starter decks in Final Fantasy different from other trading card games?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is that most trading card games put generally suboptimal or less than desired cards, lackluster, into the starter decks, making them less than compelling to buy as a player.
Yeah.
You don't know it when you're a new player, but there's not a lot of reason or incentive to buy these decks if you're an experienced player.
Yeah.
There might be 1 or 2 good cards, but the rest of it is generally bulk, as you come to find out later. It gives you opportunities to swap your cards out and make the deck better,
yeah.
But that's not what every player wants just getting started.
Yeah, and another big issue with it is that even if it does reprint or just prints a good card, it's almost always in like a singleton copy.
Yep.
So if you look at, like, for example, well, I was going to say the Brawl decks, but Brawl is a singleton format. But if you look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks, for example, a lot of them will just, like the main front card, there will just be 1 copy of it. And if the card's good enough, you need to be running 3 copies of it, which means that you need to pick up 3 starter decks.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of LGSs like to help you out with that. And just
yeah, I know
hey,
ours run deals.
Where it's like, hey, 3 for 25.
Mm-hmm.
But that's,
That's ridiculous.
It still sucks.
I mean, because at that point, the structure decks and the starter decks are almost identical in format.
Yeah, that and players just have to pick up just so much. And then on top of that, you end up with triplicates of bulk. You end up with so many extra cards that you don't need. Like, a big joke was the Ancient Gear starter deck, which had Maxi in it. And people were picking that up in triplicate, not to play Ancient Gears, even though they were, like, okay at the time. Very rogue. They were picking it up so you could get your playset of Maxi before it got banned.
Right. Yeah, the ban, that was a rough one.
Yeah.
But here's how Final Fantasy does it better.
Mm-hmm.
So, starter deck exclusive cards are usually played in some capacity. Even some starter cards from Opus 1 are still relevant.
Yeah. Like, in my boy Mono Ice, like, I'm still running a copy of Sarah. I'm still running 2 copies of Sid Reigns. I'm thinking about bumping up to 3. Jill Nabat still sees play. A big one that's been super important now is
Eureka Payne.
Yeah, the Payne from Europe. Even that Yuna saw a little play.
Yeah, for a little while.
And then another good example is Zangan, who's still seeing play in EX decks.
Yep.
And same with Tifa. That the new
kind
Tifa,
of, yeah.
Yeah, the new Tifa and the new Barrett, well, relatively new. They're 2 sets ago. Are still really good.
Right.
Yeah, and then everything that is exclusive to the starter decks, and this is a big reason why we brought up about having to buy 3, is everything in Final Fantasy comes in a playset already. So if you buy that 7 deck, you already get a playset of Tifa, you already get a playset of Zangan, you get a playset of everything you need, which is great. So instead of having to pay $30 for 3 decks and a bunch of bulk, you're paying $15 for 1 deck, the end.
Right, and even the cards that aren't exclusives, right, not the front box art cards, you know, the commons and rares and the quote-unquote junk cards, right, the simple stuff, even those are generally decent. They're playable. More so in later starter decks than the older ones.
Yeah.
But when you have a bigger pool of cards to play with, that's how it kind of goes.
Yeah. We saw some decent reprints in Odin, which was in Opus 5, the 14 starter, which at the time was like a $4 or $5 card.
Yep.
And it wasn't exactly in triplicate, but it was at 2, which is fine.
It's still more than, I mean, it's an expensive to play card.
Yeah.
The cost of using it is heavy.
And I think even now, like, Win starter decks come with archers, which that's still an Opus 1 card that hasn't been reprinted outside of the starter decks. Right. It's a great card to put in starter decks because, you know, if you just pick it up, you're like, oh, I already got, you know, archers. I'm fine. I don't need to worry about it. I think that's part of the reason why we got a functional reprint in Ninja.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, like, we get to see that. Like, there's...
The
bulk isn't terrible.
Yeah, it's stuff that's usable. You don't feel immediately compelled to yank it out of the deck and replace it.
Yeah.
Is basically the point here.
Yeah.
And ultimately, while they're not competitive decks, kind of like Weiss Schwartz starter decks, they're playable. You can get somewhere with them, and it usually only requires a little bit of tweaking and money to upgrade them from like a 5 out of 10 to like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, and we'll be getting into examples for it. But out of the box, they're not terrible overall. Like, we're going to get into the specifics of it, and then we're also going to kind of give you a little bit of a tier list and a do buy, don't buy ish thing. But we're going to start from the very top, from Opus 1. The most popular Opus 1 starter deck, the Final Fantasy VII one, which was really the deck to just kind of introduce everybody to FFTCG.
Right. I mean, 7 is an iconic game. It's the fan favorite, quote unquote.
Yeah, it has it's by far the most recognizable IP. Of course, it's great to start on. And it had some pretty decent stuff straight out of the box. Against the other Opus 1 decks, it was pretty decent. We all know what's the best one, but we'll get to that. And it immediately had Zangan, which didn't see a lot of play initially, but saw quite a bit of play recently in 7EX. And even though 7EX has kind of fallen out of favor, it's still not a bad deck. It's still very playable. It's a great budget deck.
It's very much a great budget deck.
You get the whole thing for well under $100.
It's a super fun deck for new players too, because it kind of plays itself, but it lends itself to learning and experience.
Yeah, that and the deck technically just got cheaper because the only expensive card in it was Phoenix, and that card
reprinted.
And we're gonna get a bit more into that when we touch on the other Final Fantasy VII deck. But nowadays, like, you only really pick it up for Zangan. Some people still run the Red 13 that was exclusive to it. Some people... You still run the Tifa that was exclusive to it, if only as, like, a 1 or 2 of.
Right.
And the Cloud hasn't aged well.
Yeah.
A lot of the cards in the deck haven't aged well, but
you
still get some nice Fire and Earth staples, some just decent cards. So nowadays it's kind of a novelty, but if you are planning on building 7EX, which is a great deck to start off with, especially in like a competitive sense, it's still worth picking up. If you can still find it at your LGS, I'm sure that they're even willing to kind of give you a bit of a discount if it's been sitting there that long.
Right. If they have them, I'm impressed.
Yeah, hopefully we see... I hope that they eventually do something where it's just like several of the original... Or like you could just pick up a thing of the original starter decks for like $20.
And moving on, we'll go to the next Opus 1 starter. It's the Final Fantasy X starter.
Yeah.
I'm salty about this one because back when I was playing Final Fantasy X, I got almost all the way to the end, and I was back and forth playing 10 and 12 back to back, and that memory card had both those saves on it, and that memory card crashed. I lost both of those saves, along with a bunch of characters in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games, and I'm still salty. I miss all that data. I was almost done with both of those games, and I never saw the end, guys.
Well, the sad part is that you lost the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 save data.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy is temporary. Tony Hawk Pro Skater is forever.
Yeah.
Until Tony Hawk dies.
Yeah. Right?
That's good grit.
But this is a deck that introduced players to the game in a more of a mid-range play style.
Yeah.
Very calm and cool.
Yeah, it was like right out of the box, very control oriented. And because it had a lot of interesting cards. So you had Yuna as a draw engine. You had Riku and Pain as these kind of weird cards. Pain especially wasn't in the limelight until quite a bit later.
True. Yeah, it was very underappreciated.
Another card that was also incredibly underappreciated and is now a complete and utter staple.
Valifor.
Valifor, boys. So that card is disgusting. And, you know, back in the day it didn't see a lot of play because you couldn't really recur it. We were also still waiting on the good Yuna. Well, no, the good Yuna was Opus 2, I think.
Yeah,
so
I want to say Opus 2.
It didn't have to wait very long. But at the same time, there wasn't a big reason to run Wind Water. Outside of, like, in Opus 3, there was, like, Knights. But that was about it. Like,
yeah, there were Knights and standard units. Yeah. I remember a couple of the old regulars used to run that one. It was kind of a frustrating deck just because stuff got big.
Yeah, but now the big reason to run the deck is because there's so many control elements. Wind and Water have come so far since Opus 1 and are such powerhouses that putting them together, along with Valifor, is disgusting. It's even a deck that I've picked up recently, and I've been having loads of fun with, and it's very disgusting. So the deck is still pretty much worth picking up today, if only for Valifor and Pain. You can pick up the singles, but it's worth it to just get the full package.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you might as well just buy the whole deck because you have a full deck that you can disassemble or play around with.
Yeah. And we don't know if that Yuna's ever going to come up again. We don't know if that starter deck exclusive Riku. We know that starter deck exclusive Pain's going to be around for a bit.
Oh, yeah. No, that one's going to take a long time to die out.
Yeah.
But then moving on again, we have Final Fantasy 13. I'm still salty about this one because we were at Ty's house one day for an event, and somebody just stole my disc 3 out of my game case that I had brought over.
You just have a grudge. Like, Final Fantasy hates you.
Yeah, the series just hates me. Like, I can't catch a break. I still haven't gotten that disc 3 back, so I had to rebuy it on PC, which I'm fine with, but, like, that game I never got to finish either.
Rough.
Anyway, this is Eric's favorite starter deck, my favorite starter deck.
I mean, it's in my opinion probably the best one to start with. If you do have the option between the first 3 for some reason, the 13 deck's probably the best one to go with. FF10 really, if you want if you want cards that will be competitive when you dump a lot of money into the game. But 13 is probably the best to start off with. It was actually the first deck that both of us played at E3.
Right. Well, I mean, it's up in the air between this one and a couple others, but I definitely like this one.
Yeah, between the Opus 1 ones.
Yeah, between the Opus 1 ones is definitely our favorite.
Yeah.
It's a really good combo of aggro and control. And it's kind of not... It's just outside mid-range category, but it's close.
Yeah.
Had elements of dulling, freezing, haste, and minor removal. And like Ty said, we both started with this deck, so we're a little bit biased.
Yeah.
But it really is a good way to learn because it introduces you to so many different mechanics all at once, and it introduces them at a proper, good pace.
There's something to really point out is there's going to be a couple other decks that will contest this, but this deck, despite the fact that it was Opus 1, still has the most competitively played cards in it. Because you have Sid Reigns, which is run in Mono Ice, Ice Earth, Water Ice. You have Sarah, who's still played in Mono Ice and Ice Water variants. There was Rigby, who's still a very, very good card.
Yep.
The Gilgamesh is still played in Golbez decks. The Jill Nabat is still played.
Yeah, Jill Nabat is still a few bucks.
The thing is, that's almost all of the cards. I think the only 2 that really didn't see play is, I think, the Lightning and the Snow.
The Lightning and the Snow.
And then the McKee? Or was that... I don't remember
McKee
if
is a
that
starter
was-
exclusive.
Yeah. McKee was... Those were the only three that didn't see play. But if you look at, like, I don't know, the 7 deck, when you just have the Zongon and the Tifa, and then maybe the Red 13, and they all appear on the same deck.
Yeah.
When this is between, like, 10 different decks. So, like, the 13 deck is...
Like, card for card, it's got the highest ratio of reused cards in the meta.
Yeah, and if you had to... Well, we're going to be testing this later, but if you had to put all of the Opus 3 decks against... Or all the Opus 1 decks against each other, it would probably win.
Yeah, I would argue so.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll get into that later.
But moving on to the Opus 3 starter decks now. First one on the list is Final Fantasy IX. This deck was very rude when it came out. It had cheap removal, cheap draws, good synergy, and light Zidane. That Zidane was filthy.
At the time.
At the time,
Yeah.
right? Was. Since the Opus 3 meta, it hasn't aged well at all. Starter deck exclusive cards aren't handy, and the reprints it gave us didn't do very much for it. You might as well pick this one up for the Eroded Paladin if you have a collection.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, which if you want to know the little story about, there was a standard unit that they printed as a knight, but it was supposed to be a paladin. So it got eroded in here, but it's not eroded in the sets. It's been eroded since in other starter decks, but yeah, this is probably the worst age deck almost out of all of them.
Yeah,
like there's just nothing here.
I felt really bad. So I was playing like trash at the Anime Central tournament.
Yeah.
I had been dealing with a lot of life stress and whatnot prior, and I forgot to eat that day, so I couldn't concentrate on a damn thing. A little harkening back to our how to compete or how to prep for a large tournament video. But I did end up playing one person who was running just the FF9 starter. Like that was just the deck. I think they swapped out like 2 cards.
Yeah.
And the dude knew the mechanics of the game. He was doing as much as he could. But I was playing Warriors of Darkness, and he literally didn't touch me.
Yeah.
I think I dealt myself a point of damage in some way. I don't recall. But like I took 1 point of damage at most, and I felt really bad for the guy because he was just doing everything he could, and it just wasn't enough. Like this deck isn't viable at all.
It's like I mentioned, it's the worst aged out of all of them. The only real reason to pick it up is if you're a collector.
Yeah, which
like
I want to get one, but
there's absolutely zero reason. It's such a bad deck.
Yeah.
Like, I wish that we could even give, like, reasonable upgrades for this or talk about what it could go into. But
like, you can throw certain things in, but it's only going to take it so far.
The only thing that came out of this deck was Light Zidane saw light play in Mono Ice.
Yeah.
That was about it. Like there wasn't much of a reason to run this deck.
You can put lipstick on a bull, but it's still a bull.
Exactly. Like, it's really bad. But to move on to the much better deck... this is Type 0, and this is something that I actually just realized now that we're talking about it. Both of these decks only had like 2 or 3 starter deck exclusive cards. Like they had much less than Opus 1, but they had alt arts of other cards. And then we also see that in the Type 0 one, where we see the starter deck exclusive cards weren't great. But the deck was, out of the box, was kind of like a kind of screw you deck. It was very good lockdown, especially for the time. Good at forcing the opponent into the corner while you set up. It was really good at swarming. You got to run Wind and Lightning, which are 2 great colors for removal. And even today, it still has a good Cadets package. Like, you'll still want to pick it up if you want to focus on Cadets, if you really like Type 0. If you want to build a Cadet deck, it's a great start.
Yeah, especially with the surprise support we got the last couple sets regarding the Cadets. It was actually really good.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because I normally recommend picking up this deck for the title card Ace, but better Aces have come out since.
Yeah, actually.
And you can't really do much about that. Like, so the deck, out of the box hasn't aged well. But if you do want to put the cards towards another deck, if you want to put the cards towards an Opus, or a Type 0 deck, it works. It comes with a lot of the solid cards, it comes with the Odin, it comes with the Diabolos. There's a lot of really good reasonable upgrades for this deck, and kind of like the 3070X deck off of 7, like, you could do a reasonable upgrade to this and have it be semi-competitive.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at it, it's a good deck to cannibalize.
Yeah.
Delicious. 10 out of 10. But it also is a really good example of how synergy works.
Yeah.
If you're a new player and you want to understand synergy, this deck and another deck we're going to talk about in a couple minutes are two decks to very much focus on for synergy if you want to understand category synergy.
Yeah, it's funny because it was really almost like the first archetype that we ever got in Zero Cadets, and it's still decent, but it just hasn't aged as well as other things.
True.
And then moving on to Opus 5.
Yep.
So the first one was the Final Fantasy 13 2 deck from Opus 5. The whole deck kind of revolved around Noelle and Sarah, and it could kind of go both one of two ways. You either hard lean into the synergies that the deck presents, which aren't great.
Right.
Or you try to play it traditional way outside of the synergies, which also isn't great.
Yeah,
so
if
you
you
kind of lose either way.
If you don't capitalize on every single opportunity perfectly, you're going to lose.
Yeah, like if you're, let's say, like dream scenario for this deck is that you're in a starter deck tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Like this isn't a terrible one to pick if you're in that starter deck tournament, but outside of that, it's really bad.
It's a deck that you almost need to be an experienced player to utilize, or have someone else teaching you how to utilize it.
Yeah.
Requires some adaptability.
Yeah, and there really is like no real reasonable upgrades to this deck either.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not a whole lot to add. There's not a lot you could take from it. Like the Sarah has seen some play in like Moogle centric decks.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Like the whole deck isn't great. None of the cards have aged well at all. So this one is like kind of a pass. Like
it's self-contained, which is nice, but if outside of vacuum, it's bad. It's not useful.
Which Opus 5, Opus 5 had some stinkers, because we're gonna get into the other really bad one. But
at the time,
but for a palette cleanser,
right?
Let's switch to arguably one of the best starter decks.
Yeah,
one of the best individual starter decks ever printed.
This one rivals the original 13 starter.
Yeah.
This is 14.
Yeah, 14 Scions. So, as I mentioned before, best individual starter, like basically by far. The deck came with an entire Scions package that still sees some fringe play, and back in the day, really easily became a regional deck. You could bring that deck to a regional with just some reasonable upgrades with putting a bit of money into it, and you could just wipe the floor with people. It was insane.
It was an oppressive deck.
Yeah, out of the box, it was solid. It was playable. I remember there was someone who brought it we did a title tournament, and he wanted to try out just running a starter deck in it, and he was like going toe to toe with us. Like it was rough. So it was very easy to make competitive at the time. Now it's a little bit harder, but at the same time, it's a deck that could like basically wreck your locals. Yeah. If you have a relatively like chill locals, and if you do want to start getting competitive, Scions is a great place to start.
Agreed.
Because immediately this deck starts off with Papalymo, Ida, Minfilla, cards that still see some play.
Yeah, they are still relevant cards.
Yeah. Urianger was in this deck too.
Yeah, some cards in this deck are even worth running at 5. Yeah. You buy 2 of this deck and you slap some extras in there. You run 5 of a card outside a playset.
That's a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. So we originally recorded a version of this episode a while ago, and we also made that same joke in it, which shows you how old that joke is now. But people on the Final Fantasy pages are still
it's still referenced. It's in jest now, so we're just gonna keep the lighthearted nature.
Yeah. But so obviously Minfilla is very good. A lot of the cards in it are very good. A lot of the starter deck exclusive cards in it were very good.
It's a very good deck if you want to take a good player and make them feel better, or if you want to take a fresh player and make them feel like a better player. It's just a good deck.
Thinking on it, I don't think that there's a starter deck exclusive card in here that wasn't run competitively. Because let's see, we had Minfilla, Alphino, and Alisei, who still see some play. Let's see, Minfilla, Ida and Papalymo, who saw play, and Urianger. Yep. And all of them have seen some level of play.
Yeah. I think all the starter exclusive cards. Is one of the Thancred's starter exclusive or no?
No, that was a pack.
That was an add-in, yeah.
Because I remember Bill was hard looking for him.
That's right.
When set dropped. Yeah. So open. This one's just really good. It's insane. It's your best buy.
Yep.
Or one of your best buys. We'll get kind of more into
And what's
that.
funny is this is one of the cheapest decks if you're looking online.
Yeah. And
like,
a lot of places have it still.
Yeah.
Like,
it was
I know
just
some of
very
our local
heavily
places
sought
still
after.
have a couple, yeah.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny, I actually rebuilt a couple starter decks just because I had the cards for it.
Yeah.
And I actually slapped this one back together the easiest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's just funny because there's so much. It's been 4 sets since it came out, and it's aged super well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it wasn't until like really this last set that we really started to see a bit of a decline in it. And
No,
even
I would say
now,
I would say
we're
2
still-
sets ago.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
still.
But we're still seeing bits and pieces of it. Like, it's not uncommon to see someone bring a Scions to like a local or regionals.
Mhm.
I still remember the ASEN tournament, which is a while back now.
Right.
There were a couple people still running Scions. But yeah, like, this is spoiler alert. This is going to be one of the ones that we recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And then to move on to one that we can't recommend at all is the Final Fantasy XII deck from Opus 5. So like I said, this is kind of like a really shitty Oreo where
Yeah.
no, it's like an Oreo. You get a flavorless chocolate disc. And then
Okay.
you get the nice creamy
Okay.
center of Scions.
See, okay, here. Oh, all right.
I'm starting some
This
Oreo
this is
talk.
why the podcast is ending. Ty doesn't know what the good part of an Oreo is.
Oh.
It's the outside. Okay, that cream in the center is way too sugary. It's too sweet.
Oh yeah, that's totally why they made double stuffed and triple stuffed Oreos, is because the middle bit's too sweet.
It's because third graders love sugar. Get real.
It's because everybody loves sugar. Welcome to America.
Yeah, I can't argue that our president's fat as fuck.
I mean, I'm fat as fuck. Well, maybe.
And you got a few pounds less. I think you're about half the man the president
I've been-
is for
I-
different reasons that
yeah.
people think.
Though I've been packing on pounds a bit lately. But anyway, so anyway, back on top. So the Final Fantasy XII deck, when it came out, was pretty weak. Arguably the worst of the bunch in that one. And it still hasn't aged well at all. The deck didn't have any good staples, probably outside of like an Archer. It was very hard to upgrade. There was really nothing to add.
Yeah, Opus 5 gave us the Light Vaughn,
Yeah.
which was a sort of upgrade, but you needed
Yeah.
so much to get there and hold it there.
Yeah, it wasn't. Oh god, it really wasn't great. And it's once again, it just hasn't aged well at all. It's
Yeah.
not good. It's like there's no proper upgrades. It's funny because every single card in there, every single named character has a better version.
Mm-hmm.
That
Every
is in
one of them.
packs.
Yep.
To the point where if you did upgrade this deck, you'd basically have to throw it out first.
Yep.
And then just start from scratch.
It's like look at this deck as what you want to, what you're starting with.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Now get rid of it. Do it, but better.
Yeah, like that Vaughn from that deck isn't seeing play. I think there's a Balthier in that deck that's not seeing play. Like everything
Okay,
in that deck.
there's a friend that'll still see a little bit of play.
A little, and then she even got outclassed by the new friend.
Yeah, it's debated. Yeah, it's tech choice, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, because the new friend's really good. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this deck, this is just the like don't buy. It's just not good.
Yeah. I wanted to challenge myself and enter the starter deck tournament with it.
Yeah.
Or starter deck based tournament.
Mhm.
God, it was bad.
Yeah.
I think I won one match out of the whole series of rounds.
Yeah.
So that was.
The one thing I will say about this deck, though, and this is one of my favorite stories, is we're gonna have Andrew on the show at some point. He and I entered a starter deck tournament, and he called 13-2. And I was mad because I wanted to run 13-2, and I didn't want to pick up Scions because I knew A, it would be an easy win, and B, I already had it, so I didn't want to pick up more.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to pick up the other deck that I just don't have, so I'm going to pick up FF12, whatever. It can't be that bad. And my first round's against him, who's running 13-2, and the 13-2 deck just outclasses this one, despite the fact that 13-2 isn't great either. And there's one card in 13-2, I think it's called Yule, and it's if it breaks, you have to mill yourself 10.
Yeah. You can you can look at your top card.
Yeah, you could always
and then if it dies, yeah, you.
Yeah. Then you
mill 10.
And obviously that effect's completely irrelevant. Nobody's going to target your Yule. Nobody cares. Don't run Yule. Just don't run Yule. And he put it down super early as just a 2-drop backup, and then he used it as like, a scry close to the end of game, or when I was swinging in with something, he'd be like, all right, checking for EX, all right, no, okay. But I literally, we basically grinded out a game until we were almost in time. We were like 5 minutes away from time, and I should have just held off longer. He was at 11 cards, and I used Archer to break his Yule. And he put himself down to 1, and he just looked at me. He looked at his deck and looked at me. He said, "Scoop, next game," right before time got called, like right before. So I was like, "Oh, if I hold off, I could have been able to eat him." But we had to finish up that second game, and I lost because of it. But
that's a nice play, though.
Yeah,
it's a dirty one.
Yeah, but that's probably the best play that deck will ever see.
Yeah, actually.
And there's no reason to play it otherwise.
Yep.
But to once again go back to that nice Oreo creamy center, the next decks we're going to be talking about is the Opus 7 Heroes vs. Villains.
Oh,
which was
good stuff.
Insane. This is what really kind of pushed Final Fantasy starter decks over like everything else.
Yeah, this one just kind of gobsmacked everybody.
Yeah. If you're familiar with other TCGs, this was basically the equivalent of like Commander precons, where it's just a lot of good stuff, a lot of good reprints, a lot of great everything, and it was half the price of
this was the evidence that Square Enix was actually listening and cared about the community.
Yeah,
on the whole.
To preface us going into both of these decks, they reprinted a lot of cards.
Yeah.
A lot of cards. And these weren't just kind of dinky like H's. These were L's. And these weren't just like, oh, look at me, I got a VV, a $5 L. No. You got a play set of that VV and then other better cards. But we'll get into that.
Yep.
So, here, you do Heroes, I'll do Villains.
Okay, cool. So this deck gave, the Heroes deck gave us reprint of VV. Gave us Wind Cecil EX and Furion EX. The whole deck wasn't just in theme. The deck was actually the good guys because a lot of the individual cards were super effective. They put in work. The deck presented a fantastic counter to the opposing villains deck. They were very well balanced for each other. They were very well tuned. A lot of small packages of synergy. And most importantly, the Warrior of Lights package.
Which was bonkers. And still is. It's still pretty good.
Yeah. We forgot Y'shtola, the backup. There are some other starter exclusive cards and whatnot.
Yeah, which is funny because I think that Y'shtola is like the only one that hasn't. Well, hasn't really seen play. I think it's arguably like one of the worst cards out of that thing. But
it's not a bad card on its own, but
exactly, like it's
it's still decent, but not played. But this deck is a very good start for new players. Upgrades are plentiful. You have options, you have tech choices later on, and once you grow out of it, you have a lot of really good reprints and staples to put into other decks, which is huge.
I still remember we had a guy start showing up with, he just had the Heroes vs. Villains precon, and he went toe-to-toe with...
he got pretty good.
Yeah, he got pretty good, and I still remember I was playing a deck that like wasn't a joke, and he still was putting pressure on me. There was moments where I was like, "What am I gonna do?" It's just good it's good right out of the box. It's good when you update it. It's good.
It's just good, yeah.
And then it had insane reprints. But to move over to the real insane reprints, we've got the Villains deck. So it's debatable, but some people will say this is a bit stronger than the other one, though. When we kind of get into it, you'll find out why.
You'll see why.
So it kind of harkens back to the Final Fantasy 13 starter, but with a bit of a twist. It had a couple more unique effects and mechanics that generally work together better. Like, for example, there was an ongoing theme of damage in it. So, for example, like the Emperor Ultimecia, and then just being late game with, like, Golbez.
Yeah, before the damage keyword was added.
Yeah. Right now, the only card that's seeing any competitive play is the Emperor. Or the only starter deck exclusive card, I should say, that's seeing any competitive play is the Emperor. But everything else kind of got some time in the limelight. That Garland saw some play. The Golbez saw a little play. The Ultimecia saw play in Mono Ice for a little bit.
Yeah, they all did 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah. The Emperor is the only one that's continuing it.
Right.
Which makes sense.
And it's a good card.
Yeah. But the deck was already good outside of the box, and then you could upgrade it. And then on top of that, out of the two decks, it also had these insane reprints where you had a playset reprint of Genesis, which at the time was like almost a $30 card.
Yep. I remember I still feel bad for Jeff. We were talking about Genesis. I was talking about putting Genesis in Kim's Fire Ice deck.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, we need some Genesis, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, I got Genesis for trade. Like, I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah, they're getting reprinted. I was like, how much do you want for them? He's like, $8 each. I'm like, are you really?
Yeah.
He's like, going to drop to less than half value with the reprint. Yeah, sure. I'm like, are you really sure? Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay. So we did our trades of significantly reduced value, and it took a long time for that card to lose value, even after the reprint. Yeah. So I still felt pretty bad about that.
Yeah. But it had Genesis, which was an insane card. Insane to reprint.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in triplicate.
Nobody saw that coming. People were like, oh, it's going to come as a one-of, like, whatever.
I still remember, I think it's, sorry to call you out, David, but I remember David, like, pre-ordered 3 of them, and he's like, they won't put it as more of one. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I read that they're putting it in as a 3 of, and he's like, no, they wouldn't. He's like, that'd be dumb. It completely.
I remember overhearing that conversation so many times at the shop.
Yeah, but yeah, it got printed as 3, and then it had Amon, which at the time was like a $12, $13, $14, $15 card.
And the Glazio Labalos.
Yeah, oh yeah, Glazio was in there too, wasn't it?
That was a hero reprint.
Yeah.
It was a good one.
Yeah, like that's the thing, is it had so many good cards, and it was just good. It was good right out of the box. Like the Heroes deck, it was good right out of the box. It was good with upgrades. It was good to take apart. It was great.
Just well-rounded.
Yeah, the value was just out of this world.
Yeah, you were getting about like an $80, $90 value.
Yeah.
Out of a $25 box.
Yeah, almost out of the Genesis alone, really.
Right?
But yeah, so you could probably already tell from our voice or how excited we are about it. This is like a must-buy.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, if you could still find it, it's hard to find now.
Yeah, they go for about $40 now, but you're still getting a good value out of it.
I still remember when the product came out, people were trying to flip it for like 60, 70, but people were like, no, my LGS actually still has it.
Yeah, right.
That's something that, this is kind of amidst the Brawl issue, where, I almost want to say Blizzard. Wizards said that they're going to reprint it to just kind of help, more people get access to it. But PlayAsia is the people who are in charge of the Final Fantasy game, even though we always say Squeenix.
Right.
They actually just put out a bunch initially, and it wasn't hard to find them, especially for the longest time, and they've aged super well. The decks are still super good.
Yeah, hard agree.
Yeah. And I think they're only going to really have to compete with 1 or 2 other decks on this list, but we'll get into that once again.
We can move on, though,
yeah.
to Opus 8.
Yeah.
We had the Final Fantasy VII. Again, they got a new starter. This is the one that we all thought was going to promote the remake. We're wrong, but we'll get to that later.
It still promoted the remake. Wait, was it Advent Children art, or was it remake art? I always forget.
No, it was remake art.
It was remake art?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because the Cloud is remake art.
Yeah, and it definitely wasn't detailed enough.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was... The Advent Children art wouldn't have been detailed enough.
Yeah.
To be the 7 remake.
Yeah, because I know the original 7 was Advent Children.
Yeah. But this deck had people pretty wary when it came out, especially considering it contained a dead, unusable card in that deck in the form of Chocomog. Short explanation... Chocomog searches for a job Chocobo or Moogle. Yeah. And the Chocobo in that deck is a standard unit with the name Chocobo, job standard unit.
Yeah.
Useless EX.
Yeah, which my big conspiracy theory is that that card needs an errata, or Chocomog needs an errata, and they just haven't gotten around to it because Chocomog has seen 0 play.
Right.
And they don't care.
So,
and to be fair, I wouldn't care.
I like it as is. But anyway, this deck contains a lot of important cards for the Final Fantasy VII 35 to 37 EX deck, depending on how you build it, which had a pretty good career.
Yeah, it was really good in the Opus 8 meta, and it's fallen off a bit now.
Yeah.
This is what I said we were going to talk about. But
yeah, the deck is checked out mentally, but it's still a solid budget deck. And it's basically the only reason you would want to grab the deck. Yeah. It's pretty weak out of the box, but it's still fun if you really like Final Fantasy VII. I would say it's arguably more effective on the table out of the box than the original 7 starter.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, the big thing about this deck is if you just pick up the original 7 deck and this deck and you just put them together,
Oh, it becomes disgusting.
It's really good. And then if you just put a little bit of money into it, and I'm not saying like, oh, $100, I'm saying like $20-$30 at most.
Unless you're foiling, of course.
Unless you're
Don't worry about blinging.
You have a competitive level deck, a deck that still sees some fringe play now. Once again, it's not a huge deck. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's checked out, but it's just not as prominent as it was.
Yeah.
But it's still a great starter deck for people to start off with. It's still very strong. Like, I can still sit down at a table and win a couple games with it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's... And that's why I do recommend this one, only because if you can get both of them, you already have... Because if you're already running a playset of Zygon, let's say you're running 2 of the Tifa, you're running a playset of the Barret, playset of the new Tifa from this one, that's already, like, a quarter of the deck.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you're running just like some of the backups from these, and there's another like quarter of the deck.
Right.
So you're already like most of the way done with the deck.
And what I consider the most important part is how modular the builds are. You have so many options and tech choices you can make with how to build this deck. You could throw in Vincent and Yuffie combos.
Yeah.
You can throw in more summon heavy decks. Or combos. You can throw in. Just throw more EXs in. Why not? Make it a 40 EX deck. Whatever.
You could even try to run a more control-y version of it using like Shantotto and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, there's a lot of avenues that deck could take. It was decent out of the box. Once again, not super strong, but it's probably the best like upgradable one.
I would say
It's probably on par with Silence in that, where if you put some money into it, you could have a really good deck.
Yeah, on the cheap.
Yeah.
So which is kind of it's kind of contrary to what we're saying, but it's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But overall, just trust us. Good deck.
Yeah.
Fun to buy.
If you want to upgrade it.
Yeah, if you're upgrading. Don't buy it unless you're upgrading.
Yeah.
But that pushes us forward to double the 7, and we get Final Fantasy 14.
Again.
Yeah, again.
14-2.
Yeah. 14. What was the latest expansion for 14?
No, the new one is Shadowbringers. At the time, it was what was the Samurai expansion? Heaven's Word. Heaven's Word,
yeah.
One's supposed to represent.
So this deck mostly centered around removal. Actually, quite a few methods did so. Basically, the idea was get everything out of the way that opposes you. Hint of dulling, hint of pay to break, and a few summons that burn or reduce power, first strike, etc. Lease is a card that fans were rejoicing over and still is seeing play in any deck that contains fire.
Yeah.
And it gives fire a universal buff tool to hold its own against lightning and earth.
Yeah.
Which is huge because fire still is the underdog.
Yeah.
Like 7 sets after fire was last relevant. And Lease, unfortunately, is really the centerpiece and only reason to get this deck.
Yeah, it's really funny because you look at Lease and you're like, wow, this card's really, really good. Oh, man, it's basically a fire staple.
It's the front card of the deck.
Yeah, it's really fun. I wonder what else is in this deck.
And you, yeah, right.
Because I think the only other like decent card in it was Yugiri.
Yeah, Fordola.
Oh yeah,
Fordola is pretty solid. That one though, that's pretty divisive. A lot of people think the card's garbage.
That was a card that like when it came out, it was seeing some play. Now it's really not.
Yeah, I still like it. I think it's cheapestinian.
Yeah,
but
it had some cute cards. Like,
yeah,
that's something that you could say for the deck. It was cute.
Right.
But the main reason you want to pick this up is the Lease, and not much else. It's
one of the most versatile one-trick ponies.
Yeah.
Which is, again, an oxymoronic thing to say, but it's true.
Yeah. Plus, I feel like the other issue with this deck is that it just didn't help the Scions game plan.
Yeah, it didn't, because a lot of the cards in here weren't Scions.
Yeah, they were focusing on Samurai.
And the ones that didn't fit into the other deck.
Yeah, the only Scion, if I remember correctly, in this deck was Lease. And then, Thancred. There was a Thancred.
Yeah, Lease, Thancred, and like one other. There was like one other one in there. I don't remember which one it was, but it was a lightning card, I think.
But yeah, it was not good. Once again, the only real reason you want this deck is for Lease. You can't really upgrade it. You can't really do a whole lot of it. We saw some Samurai aggro, which sometimes uses Hien, sometimes uses some of the other cards that came in it, but
Unless you're going
great.
for those niche.
Yeah. If you're a huge fan of Final Fantasy 14, it's worth picking it up.
Of course.
For collectors, or if you're very dedicated on making a 14 title.
True.
But,
I mean, 14 titles got a lot of good options, though.
Yeah, it has a lot of good options, not even in that starter deck.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. But, kind of an iffy no. Yeah, light to strong no.
It's like a 3, maybe a 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Eh.
Yeah. But moving on to a 10 out of 10.
Oof.
So this is very new. Oh, that reminds me, I need to change, or we should probably change something in the tier list, but we'll get to that.
All right.
So Knights versus Wraiths in Opus 11, which is a little funny to say because we're transitioning into Opus 10, and I'm pretty sure
Opus 10.
It is Opus 10.
Yeah, it's Opus 10.
Oh, I'm thinking of the Rydia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Knights versus Wraith, which is an Opus 10 deck. We're still waiting on Opus 10.
Soon though, a couple more weeks.
Yeah, a couple more weeks.
Yep.
And some of the spoilers that we've seen are nice.
Pre-order those boxes at any one of the shops in Chicago.
Yeah.
Support your LGS.
Do you live in LA? Order from Chicago. Support our LGS. Screw your LGS.
They get enough business, I'm sure.
They get enough business. Just pre-order from Chicago and just drive out here and grab it. Just take the 2-day trip.
Yeah, hey, we'll appreciate the visit. Why not?
We'll sign your box.
Yeah, that's what people want. Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
Right?
All 23 of our subscribers would love that.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on to the deck. So do you want to cover Knights and I'll cover Wraiths like we did before?
No, screw you. I'll be the evil this time.
Cool. So Knights, much like Wraiths that's included with it, is a very worthy buy. Both of them are a worthy buy. We'll say that right now.
Yep.
Well, some of the reprints...
I mean, you can't really get one without the other.
Exactly. Some of the reprints are kind of misses, but the deck itself is like very worthy of being played. We were actually talking to someone in our play group, E-Man, and he's planning on doing a little article about like a very reasonable upgrade to the deck.
That's what we were talking about that in chat the other day. He was asking,
Yeah, because he wants to do an Onion Knight Tribal-esque version of it. And it can easily be a force to be reckoned with at your locals out of the box. There's still a lot of good cards in it. You still have, I believe that's Opus 1 Onion Knight Sage.
Yeah, I think it's, is it Opus 1 or Opus 3?
That one was Opus 1, because it was part of the Ulcid package back in Opus 2.
Oh, you're right.
So it's still, like, it's decent. Like, it had a lot of really decent reprints. It was solid outside of the box. Good budget for Wind Lightning. But a big reason to pick it up, at least for us, is... I'd say for basically everyone, is Diabolos. So, sadly, it doesn't come in as a triplicate. It only comes as a 2 of. But that card is insane.
I mean,
it's basically a must-run in any Wind deck.
Yep.
It's really, really good. It's, once again, sadly, it's only at 2, but yeah, like Diabolos is probably going down in price anyway. So it won't be super hard to pick up.
I still want to get them from David.
Yeah.
I just haven't seen him in forever.
Yeah, I had nobody. He's been busy.
I mean, that's fair. He's buying a house.
Yeah. And then outside of the reprints, you still have. Because one of the reprints was a huge sinker. It was Onion Knight L, which is already like a $1 card.
Yeah. Well, it was a promo, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
No, was the other one? Was the other Onion Knight? Oh, wait, the Wind Onion Knight. Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to kind of make up for that, you got two real... You got a home run starter deck exclusive and a pretty decent one in Vaughn and Ramza.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Vaughn is an insane card. I think definitely deserves a slot in most Wind decks.
Yep.
At least as a one of. And then the Ramza is a cute card. It's a very risky card, but playing in a mono lightning can give you a lot of value, which is something that mono lightning has trouble with.
Right. Drawing in mono lightning is huge.
Yeah. So this deck, to kind of give it the same evaluation we give the other ones, outside of the box, it's pretty good. If you want to do some reasonable upgrades, it's pretty good. If you want to dismantle it and just use the cards, it's pretty good. It's just an overall win.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to miss with it.
And then going into
Let's get the Wraiths spun up here. So much like the Knights it's included with, it really rounds out the whole box. Some really good reprints. We get the Opus 5 Cecil EX. You get Opus 5 Phoenix. both of which are really good cards. Deck by itself has a lot of good upgrades that you can make to it, and a lot of upgrades you can use from it to build other decks. Decent deck to take your locals, and really not a whole lot to say about it. It's not really that complex.
Yeah, same thing of, it's
just a worthy buy.
It's a worthy buy.
One
it's
way or
good
the other.
Out of the box. It's good to upgrade, and it's good to dismantle. Like, it's just good. And that's a big thing. If you want more of our deep thoughts about it, we did a box opening for it in which we go into detail about every card in it, really.
Yeah, we did break down a lot. Yeah, that was a long one.
Oh, yeah, it's a very long one. Which is funny, because that was supposed to be like a 15-minute episode.
Yeah, right. We just chatted so much.
It ended up turning into basically a whole discussion of it.
Yeah.
But, we'll just link that in the description below if you want to watch that episode. Otherwise, it'll probably be in the sidebar.
Yeah. So now we'll move on to the whole segment where we're going to tell you if we fully recommend or not recommend or don't recommend each given starter deck. And to break it down for you, we have two concerns, right? Primary concern is new player learning to play. You've never dealt with Final Fantasy TCG before, or worse, never any TCG before, and you need to learn to play the game decently. And secondary concern is, what do I reasonably upgrade if I'm buying this deck for that purpose, or if I'm an experienced player who needs something out of this deck?
Yeah, and then just jumping straight into it, we have 3 tiers for this: recommend, neutral, and don't buy. Obviously, recommend is the ones that we recommend buying. Neutral is if you like the characters, if you like the title, if you're looking for something specific out of it, do it. And then don't buy is don't buy.
Yep.
But to start off was Scion's Opus 5. We literally just went off about this.
Yeah, that we kind of
this deck is. How
we
kind of
circle jerked for a minute there.
It's very good. It's worthy of circle jerking.
True.
It's a very good deck, and it's great for people who are starting out. It's great for veterans who just want staples.
Yep.
Like, it's great. So I'm just gonna keep it brief. I'm just gonna
Sure.
stop it right there before we go
yeah.
back into like a circle.
Right.
Of just
Yeah.
being like,
You
it's so good.
you go. You do your thing.
And then Final Fantasy 13 Ice Lightning.
Kind of set the bar.
Yeah, it really. You're right. It set the bar. That's kind of the best way to describe it. It set the bar. It has a lot of really good reprints. Still sees a lot of competitive play. Not the deck itself, but the cards in it. Really good. Just insane.
Yeah, it's just a relevant good stuff.
Yeah. Heroes versus Villains, if only for the reprints, is worth the buy. But it's not just the reprints. It's the fact that it is good right outside of the box. It's good with reasonable upgrades. It's good with everything. Like, just, it's a must buy, really. And then kind of the same with the Knights and Wraiths. So Knights and Wraiths is a little bit worse outside of the box, but still has good reasonable upgrades, still has good reprints. Once again, just a worthy buy.
True.
And then this one's weird, and it's kind of conditional.
Yeah, grain of salt here, but Final Fantasy VII, both starters, only bind them only combine them. If you're not going to buy them together, probably shouldn't at all.
Yeah.
And that's just our recommendation.
I'd probably put that into like neutral. At low neutral.
Yeah, it's
almost don't buy.
It's like a C+ or a B-. It
is.
You can't decide, so you're just gonna go with the high mark.
Yeah, but putting them both together is what pushes that deck like above and beyond. Like it's good. It's funny because like if you could somehow get both of those packaged together, this is an absolute buy.
Oh yeah.
If you can't, or if you can only pick up one, it's just don't. You're better off just not picking it up.
Yeah.
Maybe if you had to choose between them, Opus 8 over Opus 1.
True. Agreed.
Yeah, and then this is where I'm gonna state my case.
Okay.
So I think Final Fantasy X, the Opus 1, borderline deserves to get put into the recommend.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
If only because the big thing about it is like outside of the box, it's okay. It's not great. It's okay. It's good for teaching new players, and it's kind of hard to reasonably upgrade, but. Valifor and Pain are such good cards that it's worth being bumped up to recommended just for those, because those cards are insane right now.
Yeah.
Those cards are like the reason to play Wind Water. Obviously there's other reasons to play it.
Of course.
But those are 2 very strong reasons to play Wind Water. So I guess this one's kind of a conditional recommended, as well as like the 7 decks, is if you want to build YRP, if you want to build Wind Water, heavy recommend. If you're not interested in those at all,
don't bother.
Yeah, don't bother.
Yeah, I mean, again, unless you really like Final Fantasy X that much, which if you do, fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the next one on the neutral list here is Type Zero. It was good when it came out. It's a good example of synergy, but nowadays it's not really relevant.
Yeah.
Only
Hasn't
buy
aged
it.
super well.
Yeah, only buy it if you are that into Type Zero for whatever reason, or if you intend on heavily upgrading it, which is possible now. Type Zero, the cadets didn't see any support for a long time, but now that they have it, up in the air. And the last one on the neutral list here is the 13-2 starter. If you're an advanced player or somebody who adapts to difficult decks well, go for it. If you're not, or you don't want a challenge placed on you immediately out of the box, again, don't bother.
Yeah, this one's definitely on the lower end of like neutral. It's a soft neutral, it's a soft don't buy, hard neutral, I guess. It's just not great.
It's difficult to recommend, but we don't hate it enough to say don't buy it.
Yeah, and on top of that, there are some cards in it that like kind of under the perfect circumstances might come back around. Oh, also really quick, something I forgot to mention. Another starter deck exclusive card from Ice Lightning was Mog 13. Which also still sees play.
That's right.
Sorry, I had to bring that up.
No, that's good.
I just had a brain blast about it.
Hey, stealing my thing. I made that joke the other day.
It's don't buy really. We kind of recommend it because we don't know if those cards are going to come back. We don't know if those will do well. They're so weird. That they have that potential. Especially that starter deck Noelle is such an interesting card. Like, it's probably not worth it.
Yeah, like grab it if you feel like you can sit on it.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to blow the $14 that it's going for online right now,
Yeah.
And then finishing off with the hard don't buys. And we mean that isn't like solid firm, not it's difficult to say don't buy these. Final Fantasy IX. Unless you're buying that Zidane or you're just that big a fan of Final Fantasy IX, which is fair because it's a good game.
It's
just you really, really shouldn't. You're wasting your money because everything in that deck you can get for pennies on the dollar.
It's funny because it's probably the worst age deck out of all of them because it went from basically meta to just absolute trash tier.
Yep. And then next up on the don't buy list is Scions with Fire. Again, lease. You can probably get the copies of lease for less than the cost of the deck.
You probably get foil leases for less than the cost of the deck, honestly.
Now that's arguable. Go ahead and check for me if you don't mind.
Continue talking about it.
Yeah, Ty's gonna fact check. But yeah, unless you need lease that desperately, and there's none in the if there's a buyout or something, or if you're that gung-ho about making Yugiri or Fordola fit into your, lightning deck, hard, difficult to recommend, difficult to say it's even remotely worth it. What do we got?
Damn. Wow. Lisa's $6 right now, non-foil.
And what's the foil?
She's not almost 10. Yeah, you're right. Wow.
Okay.
It's almost worth picking up that just for the lease, really.
All right, so fact check changed our don't buy to a neutral, I guess.
I guess. Well, the thing is, it's only for one card, and it's for a card that sees play in a fringe deck.
Yeah. So we're gonna say that Scions of Fire has been bumped up a slot in the don't buy list, but it's still best of the worst doesn't make it any good.
Exactly.
And lastly, a disappointing son of a bitch.
Yeah.
We have Final Fantasy 12.
I'm glad I never played Final Fantasy 12.
But we talked about doing it.
Yeah.
We talked about it, so we might do it because it's a decent game.
Yeah. I still need to beat Final Fantasy 2.
That's fair. But if you want to see these two weirdos play through Final Fantasy 12, let us know.
Leave us a comment.
We'll blow. Oh God, how long is that? It's a long game.
It's a long
one. I believe.
And I'd want to 100% it too, which is the other issue.
We'd have to do some resets then.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it'd be a reset game. But anyway, the deck just doesn't have anything going for it. There might be one card, tech choice, if you want to buy this deck for. But on the whole, just don't. Everything in here has been printed with different variations that are objectively better.
Yeah, like it's funny because every deck in here has at least one card that it's like, okay, that's kind of worth buying it for. Okay, that's a decent card. Like, that might be worth it.
12.
This is the only one that it's just like, oh no, everything in it's trash.
Yeah.
Just don't buy it.
It's just don't.
Yeah.
The deck is as annoying as Vaughn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to Vaughn,
who's like okay.
Yeah, it was okay, and then he had his latest iteration in Heroes vs. Villains.
Yeah.
And now he's insane.
He matured.
He matured.
He
What
matured.
a glow up.
He grew up a bit. So
yeah, so just don't. I think especially out of all of these, this is the only one that we could say like don't even touch this deck.
yeah,
It is
if you're thinking about
hot
it,
garbage.
if you're thinking about it, we will find you and we will slap you.
Yeah.
But not too hard because that would hurt probably. Yeah. We don't. We're nice to people, all right.
I'm a pacifist.
I'll slap you. I'll punch you if you slap me first. So I mean, if you want to do
There's
something,
a lot of conditions for us to get mad at you for buying this deck.
Yeah.
But we will judge you and we will take you out in tournament.
But like, if you want to get into a private slap fight, hit me up. Anyway, I'm not weird about it or anything. Anyway, we're gonna host all these deck profiles exactly as they were printed on a profile on FF decks called Starters Only.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, the whole profile is just starter decks only.
Yeah.
And so I still have to put together the Wraiths versus Knights.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have all the cards on FF decks for that yet.
They just updated it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will put that together ASAP.
Yeah, because people are finally putting Vons into their
right.
stuff.
So, but those decks will all be viewable, and you can take a look at them for yourselves. Feel free to agree or disagree with our criticisms of these decks.
Yeah. If you think FF9 is insanely good, and you think that you run the Zidane in triplicate,
now that'll have to punch you.
Yeah.
That'll have to hurt you.
Or if you think that it's not worth it to basically recommend the Final Fantasy X deck just for the Yerp core staples, comment below. Just tell us we're wrong.
We like
we're right. I don't know.
Yeah, we like the dialogue
today.
Yeah. Critique our critique, as it were. So yeah, I think that's about all we've got to say, right?
Yeah. I can't really think of much else to say.
All right, cool. So I think that'll be it. We will see you guys later.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, listening, whatever.
Yeah. Click our link for Ko-fi to buy us Ko-fi and a pack or something. All of it goes straight into the show. I don't know what our next reasonable upgrade will be, but
yeah, that's a good question. I got
that enough today.
Well, I was gonna say, we got the monitor arm, and we have the sound dampening foam, which I put up. Hopefully, it sounds a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to do a little bit less post editing for the audio.
I think if anything, our next purchase will probably be a new mic.
Yeah, I would love to get a better mic.
Yeah.
But those are expensive because I have to get the mic, I'd have to get the interface, I'd have to get the cables in between.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a discussion for a different day.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, listening, and we will catch you guys later.
Bye. But it didn't really do a whole lot. It was decent in starter deck tournaments.
I was trying to leave without making noise.
It's okay.